So I'm here right now with David Plattner. David, I love your title. You are Chief Visionary Officer.
That's right.
For Meter Squared Earth, M2 Earth. And you have a lot of really great and innovative ideas, I notice, in your company. We're going to talk about blockchain in a minute, but could you start off by telling me about the Great Green Wall?
The Great Green Wall was started initially many years ago, pre-World War II, but during the war it stopped, and so 2007 the UNCCD and World Bank and others put together a commitment to make a wall 7,800 kilometers going across Africa from Sudan to Ethiopia. And that wall was to create livelihood, to stop the mass migration as a result of the mass desertification. So this wall of trees is fundamentally an agro business, planting trees and creating livelihood. So that's the initiative I coupled onto. Now it's moved from 7,800 kilometers to much broader. The African Union, our partner, has brought it to 35 countries now, going from Tunisia all the way to South Africa. And it's quite an extraordinary project, and we're taking it on as a private sector.
That's very interesting, and I understand that it is going to be very expensive and cost a lot of money, that a lot of countries will have to kind of find that a way of financing all of that. The production of this mosaic, I understand, is going to be like a mosaic of landscapes, trees, and other types of landscape. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting as well is that one of the ways that you are looking at of raising money for the environment is through blockchain. I have to admit, most people probably don't know that much about blockchain unless we think about maybe something like Bitcoin. Could you, or could Leroy Ware, who's with us as well, tell us a little bit about how would blockchain technology help with finance reforestation?
Fundamentally, blockchain is a way in which we can look at the land in square meters, thus the name, and I point to my colleague here, Meter Squared Earth, M2E, is going to be looked at because we value every single square meter. And I'd like to just give Leroy a little chance to explain.
Sure. Yeah, so over the last few weeks, me and David have been talking to quite a few community leaders in Africa, trying to understand some of the biggest problems there, and why is it that capital does not move into Africa, as much as it should. And so one of the biggest problems is the lack of business information. And so, basically anything from small to mid-sized businesses there just don't use the typical accounting system, or a lot of them don't, that most investors are used to. So assessing credit risk and figuring out, whether or not, money should be lent or investment should be made has been kind of difficult until now. And so the blockchain was designed, in 2009 when the Bitcoin white paper was published, that paper introduced a lot of new ideas. One of them was blockchain, which is a data structure that allows you to immutably store transaction data. And so if we can tie the transaction histories to land and to specific farming collectives that are managing land, then we have a lot more information now to assess credit risk and make investments and so on. And so then all of a sudden now, that's one piece. And the other piece is that there's somewhere around $500 billion worth of crypto wealth laying around that's emerged over the last 9 years, and most of the people who hold that wealth don't really want to convert it back to fiat currency because it's a taxable event. And so they're usually looking for some other crypto investment. There's even a whole new blockchain lending market that's popping up where people can, if they need some money, instead of selling that Bitcoin, you can sort of park it in a smart contract and borrow fiat against it. And so we're trying to create sort of a new style of crowdfunding platform where instead of going direct, but in addition to going to governments and impact funds and other things, there's a whole crowd of people out there that have a lot of crypto that may be willing to loan it or invest it in Africa if we had the proper machinery in place to let them assess risk.
That is really so interesting. I had no idea that there's this whole other resource out there that we can use to make the $500 billion.
Yes, is out there in the world of cryptocurrency, people that are holding it in their what they call the wallets. Yes. And we're looking to be a social impact investment or they buy our tokens and this money goes into what we now want to do is micro lending at the lowest cost and then create food, buy the food that is created. So we're calling it agro blockchain.
And what do you hope to accomplish here at the symposium that you're at today? What do you hope to achieve here?
This is my family. This is the people for the last 20 years of my life. In fact, I see a lot of people I've met throughout the many years. This is the place. And Tony Simmons, Speaker, your Secretary General, the people here are doing this. This is all about leverage, leverage, leverage. So the private sector, which we are emerging where we want to be a voice to collect the various people that have the same agenda. It just so happens we're jump-starting it with the crypto market, and it will be robust, and we're launching at the end of July.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, David and Leroy, and the best of luck with your project.